Okay, we should be live.
All right. Today is Thursday, November 14th, and this is a check-in meeting on active development tasks for Backdrop CMS. Before we get into core issues, I want to say that there are two new contributed projects out this week. We have both a stable release for Max Length and Bamboo, which I believe is the theme. I haven't looked at it. It's a layout template.
Yeah, layout. Yep.
We also have a couple of things we're working on Backdrop's websites. First and foremost, I am trying to work on some changes to our newsletter sign-up form to make sure that everybody who signs up for our newsletter is adequately opted into GDPR requirements. And that's going to go across all websites. And then for backdropcms.org, it looks like we might need to update our DNS to deal with DMARC stuff because emails coming from the website are not getting through to people's inboxes. I know we did a server change recently, and I don't know if we were using an IP address that might have been tied to the old server, and that needs to be updated to go to the new one. So that seemed like kind of an urgent issue, so I figured I'd throw that into the agenda today. Nate, I think right now you're the only one with access to DNS for the domains, but maybe we can throw that into the new Backdrop 1Password thing, and that might be another way to solve that problem.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll need to decouple Backdrop's domains from the rest of my account because right now it's
that also I have a handful of Backdrop domains I'd like to transfer into a Backdrop specific account, so we can get those all organized.
Yeah, we might want to be careful with that though, because we might end up with Backdrop separate financial information in the Backdrop account. And so any domains you transfer into there, Backdrop would be responsible for paying for in the future. And maybe if they're just speculative, it might be best to keep them.
Okay, until we use them.
Right.
Okay, that's fair. All right, let's see. Also exciting, we just talked in our outreach meeting about setting up a sprint to work on some of the issues that we've recently discovered or recently remembered about the forum site. Tim recommended starting this weekend, going for a week and ending next weekend so that we would have a kickoff day on Sunday. So anyone who has time available to contribute at any time on Sunday can join us virtually. Then we'll work on issues all week long, and then we will have a wrap up the following Sunday and see how many issues we can knock out on cleaning up our forum site. So I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm looking forward to working on it and wanted to just announce that so anyone else can join too. That's it for general announcements, and let's turn the meeting over to Nate to update us on core issues.
Okay, so project report for this week, the current bug fix release that we're working on is 1.14.2. There have been a couple more additional fixes that have been going in into 1.14.2, but I don't think any of them are things that are really worth mentioning that have happened in the last week. Let's see, looking at the 1.14.2 milestone, we currently have 54 open issues in the 1.14.2 milestone, many of which need review. Looks like on milestone 1.14.2, 23 of those, so almost half of the open issues in 1.14.2 have pull requests that are open that are in the needs review state. So I don't think that there's anything on the RTBC queue at this point. So if you're looking to contribute some effort into fixing bugs and getting them out in the very near future, the 1.14 milestone is a great place to start and look at the issues that currently need review.
Just to mention a single ticket that was recently brought to my attention, and I did the testing but not the code review because I participated in the pull requests. So 4193, the one about the file temporary path.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so Alan Mills filed the second pull request. I helped with that. So to accommodate for the last comment that you left. but I cannot mark it as RTBC because I actually did some of the changes. So I need someone else to do the code review. I did the
Okay.
testing.
Yeah, this looks really simple. Thank you for helping Alan with that. I saw that he's been really adamant that it's a big thing that needs to be taken care of. But really, it's like, this doesn't seem to affect too much, really. It doesn't have any end user facing issues or anything. However, the fix is simple, and it looks like you guys got it sorted out, and it looks right to me. So yeah, I think it would be great to get that through just because this is one of Alan's first core issues. It would be nice to help him feel empowered. Okay, thank you. It's a great one. Nice and easy. So I'm trying to add to the issue or agenda just as something that was discussed. So the other two items that we've got marked on the agenda are big meta issues, one for views crossports. The views crossports issue number is 3685. And then also flexible templates, a new feature that we added in 114, has a big meta issue at 4046. So both of those have lots of sub issues that all could potentially be worked on and integrated into the bug fix release as soon as they're ready. However, I don't think there's any progress to report on either of those issues. So we can just kind of move on to the next item. I don't think there's anything else in 114.2. Anybody else have any issues they would like to bring up as bug fixes of note? No? Okay. Okay, well, let's talk about 115 then. 115 is the next minor version of Backdrop that includes new features. We have about 8 features that are currently in progress for 115 that are noted as having advocates. These aren't necessarily the only issues that we'll get into 115, but they're the ones that we mentioned during these weekly meetings because they have individuals who are advocating for their inclusion. And sometimes those people will be present to give their updates. Other times they might leave an update in the issue for us to report on them. So the first one that we have here is add an image library modal to image fields, issue 3297. Lauren is the advocate for this that is not present today. I've been seeing a lot of activity on this issue though. Anyone want to volunteer as being a person to summarize this? Otherwise I can go over it. Okay, I'll go over it. Graham72 has been doing development work on this. It looks like it actually functions. Lauren posted a great video of how the whole thing works in the issue, which is 3297. And there's still consideration in there, concern that right now it's an inline view that lets you select images. And Doc Wilmot posted a good comment summarizing why it might be better for it to be in a modal instead. I haven't put my personal opinion in here, but I also kind of agree. I don't want to, force that decision, but I agree with Doc Wilmot that I think overall this would be better in a modal probably, to allow for other elements like search and the pager and other things like that in a dedicated location separate from the rest of the node form. Anyway, Graham72 continues to push forward on that, and it looks like he's still making a lot of progress, even though that decision about how it should be displayed may change, may require some reworking. Next up, auto menu settings in core, issue 1610. This simple feature just makes it so that when you create a new node, possibly of a page content type, we could have it so that a menu item is created by default when that piece of content is saved. I don't think that there's been any changes in the past 2 weeks. However, the current status of it is that there's a pull request that just needs review. So I think that's where that is. Jen, is there more on that issue that that I've missed there? But it looks like everything is ready. It just needs somebody to look at it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. Real simple issue though. Simple in implementation and in scope. So 1610 is an issue that just could use some review. Recent news block on the dashboard, issue 3566, will make it so that potentially the backdropcms.org flagship site could aggregate news and send it to individual Backdrop websites in the main dashboard that you see when you log into a new Backdrop website. Tim, you're the advocate for this. Are there any updates this week?
I'm going to say no, but I'm just going to add that we might be able to squeeze this into our sprint next week because it touches on backdrop.org, even though it's also a core issue. So.
Okay, great. Next up is issue 1575, providing a way to re-enable disabled text formats. Gregory, would you give us an update?
Sure, there's no update since last time, but it has a clear path forward and we're pretty close. Like we got pretty close on getting it in with 114. It's just it was breaking certain things, but Don Wilmert has provided an idea of how to move forward with it being safer, touching less things. So it just needs to the PR needs to be updated to remove the bits of code that were breaking things elsewhere. Just yeah. That's all.
Okay. Next up, digital signatures on packages, issue 1992, part of our automatic updates initiative. I'm the advocate for this one. I don't think I've made any progress in the past week, or that there has been any progress. Last we saw this issue, CodeSign has been put into the contrib repository. Project module has been updated for CodeSign support. I've got my local copy of backdropcms.org with CodeSign and the updated project module on it and generating signatures on projects, all of which is very cool and great. However, if we were to I haven't gotten it fully worked out, even though it's creating signatures and it's updating the feed with signatures in it. The way that John has structured this module is that backdropcms.org needs to become a certificate authority. And right now I've just created a self-signed private key to generate the signatures when really we need a certificate authority to be created. We can self-create an authority, but it's a couple of more steps. So I'm still basically working on documenting how to get all of this stuff set up and working, because it's quite a few hoops to jump through to get it all put together.
Just noting that I watched the Dries note from the past DrupalCon, and they announced that automatic updates are also coming at the end of the year, becoming stable for the 8. So if we manage to get this in, it would be about the same time that we sort of like release this feature.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check what approach that they've been using and how it's gonna work. Because there are some questions that we have yet to figure out as well. Like, I imagine maybe they're really talking about self-updates initially, kind of like we already have, because the question of how to do a truly automatic update, we haven't figured out yet, because like the step of running update.php, we don't know how to do that yet. So for now we have manual updates, manual self-updates, which do work, but they require running update.php by the administrator afterwards.
So at some point there was an independent sort of like GitHub project. Sorry, I can't remember the name of the person. That's terrible of me. I think it was Chris that did a CMS agnostic sort of like research, and it was meant to be for. He came from the Drupal community, but he worked with us as well. But it was supposed to be like for every sort of like CMS or PHP framework.
Oh right.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if they were based off of that, because he made that announcement Indeed.org. I think I recall a page Indeed.org as well. So I'm not sure.
I think it was
following.
called, that was Mike, and the project was called Curator, I think.
I cannot remember.
Here it is. Mike Banton. Looks like. Here, I'll just throw the link into the agenda just as a reference.
I missed that. Is Mike still involved in that Drupal effort?
From what Gregory is saying, it sounds like yes.
Okay.
Um,
that
Mike
right,
is-
Gregory?
Sorry,
Mike is
wasn't
from
sure.
Mike is
So
from
just-
Twin Cities here, and I know he's been involved in that, and also, he's talked to us about it before, but I wasn't sure if he was still working on it.
So his work was published in a GitHub repo, and I remember strongly that his intention was for it to be CMS agnostic, despite the fact that it was based off sort of like maybe he was using Drupal and Backdrop as sort of like an experimental sort of like base to start with. But yeah, I'm not sure if the Drupal implementation was based off of that though or not.
Yep, something to look into. Yeah, there's probably some things that we can learn or just straight up like utilize.
Yep, that's why I mentioned it.
Okay. Let's see. Let's keep going. So next up, Entity Caching Course issue 74. Joseph is the advocate for this one, but he's basically put forward the code and said, here it is. It seems to all be working. It currently needs review. So that's where that stands today. Issue 74, Entity Caching Core just needs some eyeballs. A new one for this week. I'm not sure if Doc Wilmot has actually accepted being an advocate for this issue, but I think that Jen, you were hoping that he would officially become one. But the issue is 1475. Workflow states is the...
Actually, he did become the advocate. He stated that in the chat today, and I think also in the last comment he posted on the issue.
Auto advocating for this issue. Great. And he did post an update. Excellent. So his status is that, so the overall approach of this issue, I was looking at it before the meeting, seems that it's really about making it so that Backdrop Core can better support forward revisions, or an alternative name for that is pending revisions, a revision in which you created a draft but don't publish it and a previous revision stays published. Exactly how big we want to get into, like how large the scope of this issue is, we haven't quite decided yet. It seems like Dr. Beaumont's work, he's saying that it's primarily to make it so that more advanced workflows could become possible. But at the same time, there's also some user interface changes that imply that some additional functionality would be supported out of the box in Core. So this issue, I think everyone that's looked at it so far hasn't looked at from the code perspective to see exactly what is being changed. But the user interface, it adds checkbox right now that says make default, whether or not that revision becomes the default revision. I think, oh, Tim, you actually posted feedback on this several weeks ago. Do you have anything that you'd like to add from this?
Juggling three things really quickly. Which issue?
This is the issue 1475, Better Workflow States.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just remember that it looked like a really intriguing issue, that it has some value, right? Did you need a description of like what it's doing?
Yeah, I was curious if there were any status changes this week on it. And I guess also, yeah, summarizing what it's doing, like the
Sure.
level of ambition that Doc Wilmot has for this would be great.
Right. Well, first of all, Doc Wilmot may be listening right now. He was just trying to get plugged in. So thanks for doing this. I think the ambitions might be a little bit bigger, but sort of the first step that he's got is basically that if you've got revisions on a node, you can pick any one of them and make it the active revision. So you could have 3 revisions, but you could say, you could have a draft version that's ahead of the one you're on. And then the current one would be active. And I suspect that this would open up the possibility for other sort of workflow features that you could add down the road. But at the beginning, the very first usage of this is just that I revise a node, but don't, but keep it in draft state and for other people to look at. And while the previous version remains the active version that's displaying on the site.
Mhm.
And I think he's got the basis of it kind of working already. So it's more about just getting feedback on how to improve it and stress testing it a bit.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. And I think that, yeah, that's to be determined exactly how, how much functionality we want to get into with this. I'm a little bit hesitant about adding things to the node form, but I definitely could see adding things to the revision list as being like a pretty easy way of getting that put together.
Right. And I don't remember off the top of my head how he did it, but I do remember like viewing the revision list where like it showed you which was the active revision. And I think you could like switch that on the revision list. But anyways, I apologize to Aquilmon if I'm saying this wrong because it's memory from about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think the screenshot that you posted, Tim, it currently just highlights the active revision. It's kind of interesting. I kind of would have expected there to be an option to set the active revision, like a radio button, to like say, make this one active. But I could see that being conflicting with like diff module, which also sets radio buttons. And then if you had 3 radio buttons per row, that would be like really overwhelming to try to figure out what the heck was going on. But maybe that's the problem with diff module. Although we have, speaking of diff module, we have the diff engine in core now too. Diff module used to include its own diff engine, but when we added the diffing of config files, we moved the diff engine into core. So that also kind of presents some interesting possibilities of having diff support in core as well, because really we're just missing something that exposes that, like, let's look at the 2 things. I don't know. It might get hairy though, so maybe not. I should just put that aside.
It's better if we can add a share things, separate things, so we can check the codes, what is new and what is old, so we can decide what will be best for revision. So revision can works with a compare version, so I can check, or we can check what we change and what is not. Also, it's need to highlight it.
I think I'm understanding you, Mohamedou, where yeah, we can figure out like the way that things should behave. The comment that I posted most recently, I think, is similar, that we can determine how something should behave using the options that are there already, possibly. Is that something along the lines of what you're saying?
I'm telling need to highlight the issue, what we change for the revision, old and new and time-wise. So I can understand, we can understand what is new version is changed and what is not. It's need to highlight it also. In
Oh, right.
Diff module where you could see the differences between versions.
Yeah, I think what it made me retract my comments about that is that I realized like some of the difficulties around things like references become really complicated with diffing. Like if you just have the two objects and diff them, that can give you pretty good results until you start getting into relationships of things, and then the whole thing starts unraveling pretty quickly. Like trying to accurately demonstrate like a relationship change and then showing what changed inside of the related items, which can be challenging even on things like files, in addition to things like node references. So I'm stepping back from the idea of putting diff into core just because the number of contrib module situations that need to be accommodated for can be really complicated.
We might be able to do something like with body fields, which is like the majority use case for wanting to see the diff, where we could say like, okay, we're going to show you the diff between two body fields, but that's it. And then if you want more, you can add diff module.
Yeah,
That might be enough. And we've already got like the color coding from diff in. I think we even have some of the diff engine. It would be curious to see what we can do just using what we have on like text fields or body fields alone.
yeah. I suppose if you made it so that the diff, like the diff functionality in core supported like the field types that were in core, but then other field types that were provided by contrib had to provide their own diff, which I think that's the way diff module works right now, actually, that each field type has to provide its own mechanism for showing a diff.
Image fields and references are going to be in core soon too. Like, I don't think that gets around the hard part of the problem, but I think we could definitely start with like support for text diffs and just, you know, say that's a good stopping point and then kick the rest to follow-up issues.
Well, anyway, that's probably getting out of the scope of 1475, which is actually just about making some kind of unpublished pending revisions, but still all an interesting line of conversation. Last up is Jen, you on manage file display issue 1431. Do you have any comments on this?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
I put a note in the thing that says there's no updates this week.
Then that's it, I think, for 115 or the 115 version. Do you guys have anything else that you guys would like to discuss on 115? Okay. So we were talking about this before the meeting started. We have a general discussion item in Q&A on security issues and maintaining abandoned security or abandoned projects from Drupal.org. This past week, a number of contrib modules were all marked unsupported due to unfixed security issues. And the thing that we want to discuss is how that affects Backdrop, because a lot of these modules, 3 of them at least, have contrib versions that are ported to Backdrop. And as far as we know, these modules are supported within Backdrop, even though they're not supported within Drupal 7. And so the question is, I think, how do we make it so that we know what the problems are with these Drupal 7 modules so that we can fix and continue to maintain them within Backdrop? And the approach that we're pursuing right now is that we're trying to figure out what the security problems are so that we can fix them on the Backdrop side, on the Backdrop port of those modules. But we haven't been able to find records of where the security problems, what security problems exist in these modules. So what we're trying to do is reach out to the security team, either through email, security@drupal.org, or through individual security team maintainers, and see if we can get access to those security issues that affect these modules. I wish Jeff was still on. There's 3 modules that are affected, the most prominent of which is NodeQ. Do you guys remember the other 2 that we have ports of in Backdrop contrib?
There's like a views JSON parser and else. I think I have the hold on, I have it open here. Okay, here we go. Taxonomy CSV,
Yeah, that's it.
and it was feeds JSON path parser, not views.
So in all three of those modules cases, what we would like to see is the backdrop contrib version of those modules reaching out to security@drupal.org and asking if they can request access to the related security.drupal.org issue that affects their modules. We're not sure what the response will be because the official process for making an unsupported module supported again involves becoming a maintainer for the Drupal 7 module. And I'm not sure if our contrib maintainers are all going to be interested in doing that. Like maintaining the backdrop version also means that they might need to become a maintainer for the Drupal 7 version. That'd be a really great thing for us to contribute to the Drupal community as far as providing some continuity, especially since people on those Drupal 7 modules, like one of our primary goals with Backdrop is to make it so that people can maintain their sites longer and with less maintenance overhead. And so making it so the Drupal 7 modules can continue to be used means that they'll be able to upgrade to the Backdrop versions without needing to replace that module with something else. Do you guys have it?
Backdrop, you can install through automatically backdrop.org, but it can be installed through website. It's good, but why cannot delete from the website, from our self-hosted site? He can install, also he can uninstall and delete through the website. It's need to FTP or SFTP to delete this software manually. So
We
need
have
to
a-
automatically
We
delete
have
it
an issue
system.
open for
Thank
that. So this, I think Gregory reported this in the queue where if you install something using the installer module, you can uninstall it, but you can't delete the files. And so especially for things like this that have security issues, it's important to let people delete those files. I mean, if they're not running, that's good. But I do think we need to revisit that issue. So there is an issue in the queue already for this that we've been working on, but I think it would be good to bring it back up to the top of the list. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Or anyone else?
Well, I think we might have unfortunately had most of the discussion about the security issue prior to starting the video, and now everyone's curiosity is satiated. So I hope I summarized that adequately, that I think our best hope is just emailing security@drupal.org and asking about those issues. Don't everybody do it at once, but if you're the maintainer of the Backdrop contrib version, like it would be nice to send a polite email to security@drupal.org to ask if you could have access to the related security issues for those modules.
I also created an issue in the Drupal queue requesting maintainer access for that particular project. And then I emailed them and said, here's the link to my request to become a maintainer. So hopefully that kind of all tied together.
And you're talking about NodeQ specifically.
Specifically, but I think for any maintainer, like if you were maintaining taxonomy CSV, you might want to do the same, create an issue saying, I want to maintain this for Drupal as well as for Backdrop, and then email them and say, here I'm officially requesting to maintain. And I think that even if you aren't planning on doing a lot of work to these modules, it's pretty easy to do it for both Drupal and Backdrop at the same time. Or at least if you're not going to do any work on the Drupal version, you can work on the security issues for the Drupal version. It's not a huge amount more responsibility than maintaining the Backdrop version if you're already doing that. So I would recommend doing both. And then at least we can keep the Backdrop versions secure and happy even though we know there's problems with Drupals, we can fix them all. Fix all the things.
Great.
Okay. Anything else anyone would like to bring up before we end the call?
Well, I'm kind of time pressed too, but I just want to mention we had that whole discussion about the basis sub-theme too, and maybe we just revisit that in a future topic. I briefly updated the ticket in the GitHub issue queue to mention, Nate, your idea about creating a module that would help create a sub-theme. And I'd still love to know more about what that means, but should we talk about that in the future?
Yep, I'll add it to the template for next week.
Okay.
What's the issue number on that?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get it. Oh, I'm not. Oh, here it is. It's 3914.
Okay. 3914. Okay. We'll talk about it next week. Okay, well, that's it then. Thank you all for joining the meeting today, and see you guys later on the internet. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week.